Welcome back to Field of Screams podcast. Today we'll be talking about The Shadow Strays. I accidentally stumbled upon this movie via luck. There was one night my family was having this family get-together party, and my dad, he tends to have this tendency whenever people come over, guests arrive, he will go on the TV and he will go on Netflix or whatever streaming app he can find, and he will just put on a movie that he has never seen before. Now, this strategy is very hit or miss, especially if there's a lot of guests over. If he puts on the wrong movie and some crazy sex scene happens, that could tend to be awkward, and usually we have to change the movie or go somewhere else. I mean, even at an older age, I still find it awkward to watch a movie and a random sex scene that come on. There's sometimes, depending on the movie, depending on the anticipation of all of us wanting to watch the movie, we can kind of look away and it's still that awkward silence and we'll get through it. But if it's this unknown movie, usually my mom will speak up and go, "What is on this TV?" And then usually my dad goes like, "Oh, fine." And then he'll put it on something else. And, if he's using the same strategy, maybe another one will pop up and then we got to deal with that. It doesn't happen too often, but I will say it happens. And I always had the bad luck as a child. When I'd stay up really late, I'd put on a movie, and it never ever failed that I'd be sitting on the couch watching the movie. The movie would be completely normal. And then as soon as one of my parents had to get up to get something to drink or go to the bathroom, and they would walk through the living room, it never failed that the raunchiest sex scene would be playing on the TV. Usually if it was my dad, he wouldn't say too much. He might give me a look, depending on how graphic the scene is. But usually he wouldn't say too much. But my mom was always one. She'd be like, What are you watching? And then I'd have to be like, I promised the movie was normal before you woke up. But anyways, my dad puts on this movie, and it's playing, and I had no interest at the moment, because I was busy. I was talking to someone during this get-together, but then I sit down, and I kind of look up, and there's just this really cool fight scene going on, and I was like, oh, my dad chose a samurai movie, because that's what it seemed like at the time. So I watched a little bit of it. I'm like, yeah, that was a pretty cool scene. This might not be too bad of a movie. And then I went and did something else. And then I go in the kitchen or something, and I come back over, and then a completely different fight scene's going on, except this time it doesn't seem like a samurai fight scene. And I was like, oh man, that was pretty cool. And my dad was watching at this point, and he goes, yeah, that was awesome. And then, we go do something else. And as you can tell, usually when he does this strategy, we are not super invested in these movies, but as this one was going, we keep looking up, and awesome stuff keeps happening on the screen. And don't get me wrong, this movie is gory. Extremely gory. And it does have its scenes where it is inappropriate. We must have just not noticed it while I was playing, my entire family was in the living room. But eventually, it's getting close to the end, and the action is getting, intense. And I was like, what movie is this? Tell me what movie this is. And so he looks up, and it's called The Shadow Strays. And I was like, oh, okay. And as it's playing, it is dubbed. This is an Indonesian... Wow. This film is from Indonesia, and it is in a different language, and while we're watching it, it is dubbed. And I highly suggest, if you do check it out, to put it on subtitles. I always feel that way. I always feel that way if it's a foreign film, just so that you can catch the acting and the lines. There's a part in this film to where an assassin is scolding another girl about a number of deaths going on, but while she is scolding her, she is talking like this and very proper with no emotion, and it's almost like the Weather Woman on the TV. So definitely watch with subtitles, because you can get better voice acting, because it's the actual actress talking. Anyways, I remember that title because, again, I was really impressed with what I saw for the few times I checked in. So a couple nights later, I go out on the couch, everyone else is asleep in my house, and I put on The Shadow Strays. And it starts off, and to give you a little synopsis if you haven't seen this film, it's basically about an assassin girl who gets discharged from her assassin group because she wasn't following the rules. And then while she's discharged and like waiting to find out what else she can do in life, she kind of befriends this young boy, and she realizes that this young boy gets kidnapped by human traffickers. And when she sees that, she decides to take on the human traffickers, who turns out to be this gigantic mob boss type gang. Now, if you are a fan of action films, if you liked John Wick or any type of film like that, like this film literally to me was Kill Bill fused together with John Wick, fused together with like Kick-Ass. Like fuse those three films together and this is what you get. Like a gigantic, gory, bloody, awesome time. The choreography for the fighting, really awesome. There's sword fights, knife fights, gun fights. Pretty sure there's fights with bombs. I think there's a point to where a guy shoots another guy point blank with like a missile launcher, or like it fired out grenades. Like it was just, cars are exploding, people are getting stabbed, blood's flying everywhere, and it's just fantastic. Now I'm going to kind of get into spoilers here, so if you haven't seen it and you want to see it before I start blabbing about it, leave now and come back later, so you can hear the rest. That's your warning. We're going to go into spoilers now. So with this film, what I liked from the very get-go is it does not take long to establish, like this movie, like the runtime, like it's like over 2 hours, but it does not feel that way because the plot's moving 24/7. And while the plot's moving, there's action scenes to go with it. Like it just feels like this film never stops to breathe, which is great for a film like this. We realize that this girl is an assassin in this group. She gets discharged really quick from the group, and the other female assassin with her feels, almost very motherly, very mean and scornful. She's giving her dirty looks. We now see this girl, she doesn't know what to do with herself. While she's doing that, she meets this young boy. This young boy is going through a lot of hardship. Like his mom is being used by this group of just very weird guys. Then we find out the mom dies. And this poor young boy, he's trying to figure out how to live life. She's trying to take care of him. She's almost like a mother figure to him. Then he gets kidnapped and trafficked. And then, all of a sudden this girl, it starts going very John Wick. Instead of his dog dying, this young boy's taken. She's got to go take him back. All of these plot points and all that were bam, 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 bam. And I feel like they were very effective too. The scene where the young boy is literally laying by his mother's grave crying, saying, "I miss you, I'm sorry, I feel like I didn't do enough." That's very emotional stuff, and it didn't take long to establish that. It's enough to make you feel sorry for the boy, realize that the boy has lived a very rough life, and by the time he gets kidnapped, you're with this girl. You're like, yeah, go get him back. And then, like, while she's, like, loading up and going to find out who these people are, and they start laying out the groundwork of, yeah, this isn't just a simple gang. Like, there's, like, 3 mob bosses, and you're going to have to defeat all 3 of them. Super fun time. Especially, I don't know, I don't know if there is a favorite mob boss of mine. Like, they're all just freaks. Like, there's the one cop mob boss. That dude was super weird. There's a guy who puts on a leather mask. I don't know. Like, I would say one tops the other, but I don't think that's the case. Like, I felt like they all did a really great job. I love the sword fights. The gunfight with the cops. Love that bit. The cop mob boss, when she, like, bites off his face. Freaking awesome. This entire movie, I'm either going, whoa, or oh, or just cracking up laughing. It's just such a fun time for anyone who loves action movies. And I know usually I cover horror on this channel, and this one isn't horror, but man, it has plenty of gore and plenty of action to keep anyone entertained, I would think, especially if you pay attention in the horror genre. Speaking of the horror genre, the director of this film, let me look at his name real quick because I can't memorize it. Timo Hunto. I know I butchered that, but this guy is important because whenever I looked up his name, well, one, a lot of people who like this guy's movies, They say that he made a film called They Come at Night or It Comes at Night or something like that. And they claimed that film was very good too, and it did have very good ratings. But this guy also made the segment Safe Haven and VHS 2, which I don't know if you've checked out my VHS ranking video. It is my most popular video, but I do like that segment a lot. I will just leave it at that point. So when I found out this is the same exact dude who made that segment, I was like, no way. Like, we got a secret genius here who is just, I feel like no one really talks about him, but I feel like this dude's doing work that deserves to be seen. So, as I watch this movie and, as I'm reviewing this, it's almost kind of hard because I want to give its credentials. I don't want to keep it super short because I love this movie. I really did. Even when this movie, she goes through the entire mob boss, there's a part to where she's literally battling a mob boss while they're both in cars and they're like ramming each other. He's shooting the little rocket launcher gun at her while she's in a car, and you just see the explosive go by her face. All that's intense, but even when all that's said and done, she goes back and hunts down like the assassin group that she was part of in the first place because they wanted to kill her. The action literally does not stop. And as I'm watching it, like this guy, I feel like any director directing this movie, you could have stopped at the mob bosses. But I feel like this guy definitely wants to, whatever he's aiming to do, he's going to do it full go. Safe Haven and VHS 2. That segment goes above and beyond. They could have just started and stopped with the scary cult. But no, we had to have zombies. No, we had to have, it was just, insaneness. So again, major kudos to this director who I butchered his name. And if he is somehow listening, which I sometimes get, I have had people who have worked on movies comment on my videos, not trying to up this podcast or, appear uppity by any means, but in the very, very slim, rare chance that it happens, I'm sorry for butchering your name, but I appreciate the work that you do. I really, really like this movie. And this movie, it's a shame, because I feel like when you recommend it to people, you're like, hey, you should watch this, The Shadow Strays. And I feel like the title itself, it's kind of like, oh, what does that even mean? And I feel like it's almost kind of a hard film to sell to people. And there's a cover of it. There's multiple covers, and one cover looks very cool. It's after a scene to where she decapitates a guy out in the snow, and his blood colors the snow all around him. That cover's very cool. But there's another cover that I think that Netflix uses where it looks very cheesy and corny. And I'm like, why are you taking such a badass movie and putting this kind of lame cover on it? I don't know. It's almost like a incantation. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that. The movie's absolutely terrifying. But if you look at the cover of it, and hopefully they updated the cover, but I was trying to talk a buddy into seeing that movie, and he pulled up a cover on Google, and man, that thing looked like it was from Harry Potter. I'm like, they got to update that. Like, it's too good of a movie to steer people away. Yeah, so overall, it's a very, very good movie. Lots of violence, lots of blood. Movie never stops. It has a long run time, but I promise you, it's worth it. If you like John Wick, you will like this film. It feels very John Wickian. That's the one film I'd probably compare it to. There's like a nightclub scene. There's people fighting with knives and guns in the nightclub. It's awesome, just like how John Wick did it. I think I might say I might like this movie better than John Wick. I might put that out there. So if that, influences you to check this movie out, it's literally on Netflix, super easy to access. Definitely go check it out if you haven't watched it yet. I highly, highly recommend it. So that's been my review of The Shadow Strays. If you're still listening, thank you so much for listening. If you can give this video a like, it gets it out to other people. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe so you know when the next one comes out. Again, thanks for listening, and until next time, guys.